Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody.
Hi.
Hello,
Hi,
hello.
how are you doing?
Excellent.
Brilliant. I think we're just missing one person and then we're good to go. Um, in the meantime, we will already start with introducing ourselves. Um, some of you I already know, but I like to start with the ones that I don't know yet. So, Ellen, please go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfectly.
Um, I'm with a nonprofit where we design therapies in virtual reality. We do three types of therapies, very scientific, neuroscience based for like Stanford and medical schools. The second type, we do indigenous psychology approaches to therapy. We do this in Uganda and in other countries, which is a bottom up approach to a community
Yeah.
concern. The third type we take practices from ancient civilizations and we use those for therapies. For example, we use a maze or a labyrinth for which is found in China and the Aztecs and Celtic religions, and we use that for people in shock from a natural man-made disaster. And so those are the three therapies. I work with 6 women with PhDs in virtual reality. Thank you for having me.
Brilliant. Welcome to join us. Sarah, welcome. Can you please introduce yourself briefly? You're on mute, sorry. Yeah,
Hi. Can you hear me now?
yeah, perfect.
All right. So it's nice to meet you all for the first time online. My name is Sarah Assel, and I'm the CEO and founder of Shore No Web Design. We started in 2021, and our focus was basically the healthcare ecosystem. So it started with creating support solutions for hospitals and clinics, and we focused on three main angles. We wanted to reduce the burnout because the doctors were dying. During COVID. And then we also wanted to focus on reducing the waiting time for patients. And then we wanted to get everybody to make profit, not only the doctors, but even the patients themselves. And we also were working on several things, such as surgical artificial intelligence. We worked on research for patient satisfaction. We also created metaverses for hospitals and clinics, and we were working on diversity, equity, and inclusion because we wanted everybody to be involved. And recently, we've been working on accessibility, so allowing people with disabilities to kind of communicate in the metaverse, be represented as who they are without any sort of single model for the metaverse. And I basically wanted to do this because it was something I needed, and my brother who passed away needed it because he had Down syndrome. So for the Down syndrome cases, the communication is not that great. And he passed away right in an emergency because there was no communication. And then I faced the same thing while I was giving birth. And that's another thing we noticed is not in the metaverse. I was trying to give birth during COVID-19, and it has been like a long battle after IVF. So it was a very precious pregnancy. It was a high risk pregnancy. I pretty much quit my job for that pregnancy. So it was very difficult facing that. And now we're actually helping with that. We're helping with neonatology, we're helping with gynecology, we're helping with geriatric care, among others. And even the avatars, we can now dive into the internal organs as far as the dermatology layers. And yeah, you can basically find out more at shorena.com. If you want to reach to me, I'm there on LinkedIn with the same name, and I'm really happy to meet you all. Thank you.
Welcome. And I'm sorry for your loss, but we'll get to that
Lost
part
a
later
lot.
on.
Everybody
Thank you.
lost a lot.
Welcome. Aileda, for those who don't know you yet, please introduce yourself shortly.
Hi, thank you so much, Isabel. So yes, I'm Alita. I have an organization called Ask Alita that originally took me into kind of the same scope of work that you all are talking about in the here and now, and that is the build out and design in the medical field and healthcare during COVID-19. I had a group of practitioners who had contracted me, interestingly enough, just before the pandemic hit in New York City. And so I was living it with them, and it was a pretty intense time. And so building in real time. And I was just watching the lady who was on the video just before we all came on the screen, and I was loving that she was talking about conscious awareness. And that's what makes us different than the AI programs. And so I'm excited to talk about that today because I love neuroscience, quantum physics, and epigenetics. Those are a top 3 passion for me. So I'm super grateful to be here with all of you and have an opportunity to connect. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you and welcome. And last but definitely not least, Christian, welcome. Happy to see you again. Tell us a bit
Hello.
more amazing work you're doing.
Yeah, great to see you as well, Isabel, and I'm super grateful to meet you all virtually. My name is Christian. I'm the founder of Blemish, and we're building a mental wellness platform for global accessibility. And so the idea really started around the COVID time in 2020, and just the will to get resources, and having to struggle and look around at the state of just our communities and seeing that there wasn't enough accessible resources for well-being. And so, I tried to just, do my very best to connect with professionals, with psychologists and technologists, psychiatrists, Reikis, and see what's possible. And so that journey led me to move from Atlanta to Paris, where I am now, with really just the desire to do in-person research, right? Not just using technology to learn about the state of well-being, but to go to different communities, to travel near and far, and build relationships, which is how I got here with GatherVerse, and just hear from the unique voices that make up our global communities and are actually, dealing with the real world problems that we're trying to solve. And so year 1 was all about research and building relationships. And then this next year 2 is about building out an application and using the research that we've learned to build out solutions. And so super happy to be here and talk more about that.
Brilliant. Welcome. I'm super happy to welcome you, and it's a real honor to have you all amongst us. My name is Isabel, and I represent GatherVerse Europe within the community. And we're all trying to put in a part for not just for us, but also for the future generations to come. And talking about that, today we will, of course, talk about technology related to wellness and humanity. If I would say like technology at service of humankind, up to what extent do you believe that that is the case today for in regards to wellness and humanity? Is it really at service of both and or not at all, or something in between? I would love to hear your thoughts about that. Ladies first, maybe, to put it with a cliche.
Yeah. So from my perspective, I think that I can honestly say building out telehealth programs, that thank heavens we had them. And it did offer huge assistance. I think it also catapulted us into the awareness of the capability to be able to treat through this aspect of things. And not just that, but for practitioners to have a farther reach quickly and easily, to be able to make some executive calls and be able to see things firsthand, right? And so I think that has led us into the creation of many, many new things that are spurring and sprouting out from that, it sounds like, especially with the individuals that we have here with us today. And it makes me super excited for the future because it's the reach, right, that it has that I think has extreme capability. The fact that we can still have a human person involved in the equation in diagnosis, even though it's on a computer screen or a phone screen, is hugely exciting to me because people need it so desperately bad.
Okay, I'm the second lady, so
Please.
if I may. So what I believe has really helped with technology is the fact that it's so diverse. It's as diverse as we are, because we are the ones that wield it as a tool. So each person's use of tech is basically why I think it's really amazing. For example, in my case, we've been working on different tiers of the technology. We weren't only working on the metaverse; we're working on the other layers where we started with web platforms. Because before we shifted between Web 2 and Web 3 and the blockchain and all of that, we started somewhere. So I think tech is really great because it's how we are able to carry our history of how we operated in a certain way and then push it forward and develop it into something that we can use even down to our kids. And that's where I think it's not only accessibility. I would like to add to Aileda's point is that it's a 24/7 because it doesn't sleep, and everybody across the globe can actually get the benefit at some point in time. You don't have to have the same vigilance that you had before, or at least specifically where we were working with AI on scheduling. It was a major issue when it came to the hospitals and clinics that we worked with. The second thing was the barriers of translation. They have come very um, became much slower as barriers. Now we have even AI that allows you to kind of speak and in a different tongue, in a different tone, as a different person. And not to mention, it's if I don't even consider the aspects of healthcare, we've moved into cinematography. Now we have animated movies. Now we have a way to self-reflect about the way we live, because that's really part of the essence of the metaverse is that you can actually create the same world. You're trying to replicate your current world into a digital realm, and that makes you self-reflect on each aspect that we took for granted. That essence of recreating an immersive experience, finding out what people should have in tech. It's like we're finally taking the time, we're taking the energy, and we're giving people that special treatment that they deserve. One common point I understand with Christian and I hope I'm saying Alan, I hope I'm saying the name correctly, is that when it comes to meditation, now we're not only looking into your exterior healthcare, we're looking into your mental wellness, your soul, and that's something that the corporate world really didn't consider much, especially when it came to gender equality, when it came to inclusion. All of that was out of space. But now, once they have it as a visual form right in front of them, they can take a look at the quality of life of another person and start to invest care, because now it's not only just an experience, it's a monetized experience where they know that the money is also involved and how it can affect them with the predictive AI, with all of the analytics that we can provide. People are now paying attention and knowing what they need to focus on. Like it's a pretty huge service that I don't think one session can be enough. So I'll just shut up right now, and guys, you have the platform. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I think that's great, and kind of just piggybacking off of what you said. I think there's an amazing opportunity for just humans to utilize technology to create solutions that are unique to them, right? And I think that's one of the things that's so special about this opportunity and this state of the world that we're in, where technology is evolving quicker than humans are. It's just the opportunity to take different pieces of technology, whether it be AI, VR, AR, and just create real world solutions, and making real world impact through virtual experiences. I think that's so special. And just one example that comes to mind is one of our strategic partners with Blemish is a company called Megaverse, and they're creating virtual environments for police to do de-escalation training, right? And to help solve the issue of police brutality, and just putting these real people into virtual environments to learn how to behave in real world situations, so that we can, help change the world and help change some of these problems that we're seeing. And so I think from that standpoint, technology is benefiting humanity and vice versa.
Yeah. Alan,
Yes,
please.
I guess if we step back and we look at assess do a cost benefit analysis, you have both negative qualities and positive qualities. I think last week there was a report showing that about 30% of young women have considered suicide in the United States, and some of that might be tied to the use of these very addictive qualities in our technologies. And so In any other country, 30% of women, they would be a national emergency. And so those are factors that need to be considered in assessing the larger picture. There is negative qualities. And then, of course, there's positive aspects to it, obviously, that our colleagues in the panel have shared today, but the negatives are significant. And specifically physical, if we're looking at this panel today as a whole person, there's a physical aspect to it that not only mental, but physical aspect that's detrimental to people's health. And I think some of what we try to do in virtual reality as far as our team is we focus on the embodied quality of virtual reality, and we're very sensitive to how that might be used in a way that can improve people's mental health as well. So there's promise, and there's also a lot of problems out there. Of course, this panel we could go all day on the negatives there, because they're quite significant as far as mental health in our children, and how it's affected people in certain ways, that people are almost neurotic in just using the virtual reality. People even talk differently than we used to talk. And so those are a lot of significant problems. But we can cover both sides, I think, openly. Even if we work in our neck deep in technology in our professional lives, there is you have to take the ethics of what you're doing significant. It has a significant importance. You have to see yourself and think of the ethics in yourself, and consider whether what you're doing is ethical. Right now, we're doing production for high-level task thinking and awake brain surgery. So while the person's brain is open, and all these medical professionals are wonderful people, but you do have to ask yourself, okay, well, what is the end outcome of this research? What are we trying to achieve? Is there we've also worked with surgeons before who wanted to do live surgery. What if the person dies? This isn't a game. So you have to be careful. You think doctors are, in the United States, at least, doctors have the highest suicide rates than anywhere else in the world. And so there's problems in our system itself of healthcare. There's problems that doctors don't have education in philosophy or ethics, and so don't think you need to have a PhD or master's in ethics or anything like that. You just need to consider yourself and be, what are your values, your ethics, and even if you're doing stuff with really brilliant people, you have to stop and be, okay, is this the right thing? Why are we doing awake brain surgery? It's like, well, what is the purpose of this study? I mean, it might be, why does a surgeon want to be live? It's an ego thing. You're like, well, why do you want to do a live surgery? Well, what is the benefit? We were recording it, then we can put it up. And what's the point? What's next? Do you want some sponsors on your medical jacket? I think that just be careful with authority anywhere, because you assume that they have a lot of ethical background, but they don't sometimes, and they don't have a good moral compass. But just throwing that out there for conversation.
I'm happy that you're bringing it up, because that was exactly where I was going to. Because what is ethical for me is not necessarily ethical for you or somebody else. We also have to take into consideration different cultures, different nationalities, different opinions, moral values in this world. So how would we approach this global technology, because it's a global thing, but taking into consideration the local customs, and at the same time being ethically, because it's a very thin line. And it is indeed, technology can be amazing, but it's almost like a gun. Depends on who's carrying it. You can use it as a defense, but also for attack. And that's the same with technology. All depends on who is using it and the way, the intention. Please, Sarah, you wanted to say something.
I wanted to comment because we're doing the surgical artificial intelligence part. So
There's a little,
the reason they look
yeah.
for live streaming is just because they need a second opinion. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
So when it comes to live streaming, you usually have more than one person feeding in. So we use it for second opinions because sometimes the doctors, they want to have all the angles covered. They don't always have all the information with them. Like I could be a specialist in gynecology, another doctor would be in internal medicine, and they need to cover the entire case. The second reason they do that is because they're doing education live. So it's like you're getting the sense of how it feels to be in a surgery room. And that on its own is an experience. It's how you move that tacit knowledge with when it's live. The third aspect is that the doctor gets a sense of how the students are feeling or what they're understanding live. And that's where you have any kind of course online. It's just the fact that it's dedicated to medicine that makes it all the more worrisome when it comes to ethics. But if you were looking at any kind of application in engineering, we do the same exact thing. We do it live. So that way you can get the feedback of your students. You're able to sort of show them one part or another, and they're able to examine all those parts that they should get to know. So that's when it comes to that aspect. When it comes to ethics, really in healthcare, it's about consent because that's where you get the permission to do something. That's when someone tells you it's okay to see X, Y, Z. And when it comes to our culture from the Arab world, we actually have dedicated schools that give you the ethics and the religious teaching with the specialization in medicine, as well as many other specializations. And some of those colleges are really well known because it's instilled there, it's a requirement for them. And not to mention the previous years where they're actually studying. You don't have to go to church school to kind of learn. There are actually schools that do the entire curriculum with the church teachings. And the same happens for everything related to a mosque or Islam. We have that acceptance where if you want to take it, you take it, but you decide where you go. And that's where I think the responsibility goes back to the parents and the authorities and the actual politics behind it all. Because in the end, they are the ones that are in control in that point in time where you're carrying out your metaverse, you're creating it. For us, we have to look at HIPAA compliance when it comes to patient data and their privacy, and we have to take care of that. But when it comes from the point of view of project management and getting the project done on time, you have so many restrictions and time limits and um, limited resource availability that you have to navigate and get that work done. So we can't please everybody, but we can at least be clear about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and to request the consent of the people that are accessing it to say, hey, I'm okay with this, or no, I do not want to engage with your solution. This is not okay for me. And this is another part we cover because for me as a woman, I cannot expose my body without reason to a male doctor or someone from the other gender. So what we did was to actually place restrictions on who can see what on the metaverse. It's not a general one size fits all. No, I can actually cover my body. Only a dermatologist will get to see part of my body that is affected. And that's where I'm limiting according to my own consent level, and I can easily specify that. So if we take the care as creators of this world, then I'm pretty sure we can make sure that others will find what they need when it comes to consent with what's okay. And even if they all have variations, then we'll just have to cater to all the variations one by one. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
I agree. I support all of that 100%. Where there is a challenge, there's always a solution. Those who are good and pure of heart will find the way to craft and create and develop that which is going to be useful for all of humanity. And now, more so than ever, I believe that that is going to be the case. again, that's one of the things that these live panels and GatherVerse and platforms and think tanks are allowing, is the collaboration and the connection of all of these people who are building and designing. And I agree, the building and the design work needs to be ethical and it needs to be mindful. To your point, Ellen, not everybody is ethical and mindful, but you know, it's for us to discern who we work with and who we do not work with, who we support and who we do not support. And, you know, that needs to be an area of focus that comes along with conscious awareness. So I'm going to take it back to that for a minute from a neuroscience perspective, because conscious awareness, it was cute because she said that was the one thing that was different than AI, right, from us. Yet neuroscience says that we're conscious only 5% of the time throughout the day as a mass humanity. And so that's where I say that's connection to spirit. Conscious awareness is your spirit. It's essentially you taking control of your mind or your physical body. Science and education, the latest science and education, or needs to come through our education systems, right? So the latest findings need to be taught and the systems need to be developed around our deficiencies. And so people really understanding how their body works, empowering them and starting to really empower people as a whole across the globe and educate them at the same time in a big push is going to help a lot of things. I think a lot of the suicide rates that we're seeing across the globe right now is also linked to people not necessarily having a sense of hope any longer, obviously, right? And that's a problem. So the fear and the anxiety push needs to kind of go away. People need to understand that they have a choice. They can make a conscious choice, conscious keyword, because we can't make any new decisions or choices until we're fully conscious and aware. And that is the one capability we have separate from AI, right? So that is what needs to increase and grow. And so people need to be taught not only how to use their body, but AI, I believe, can help accelerate this process with people becoming more consciously aware. It just, again, has to be very mindful and the right designs in order to bring them into this place of being. Yeah, that's my part on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Christian, what's your experience in terms of ethics?
Yeah, for sure. So I like what you all said, but I'm thinking about what Alan said when he say you don't have to have the PhD or be an MD, because that's kind of where I am. Sometimes I just think about am I capable of doing this, of creating a wellness platform when I don't have a PhD or only 5 years out of university, less than 5 years out of university, right? Like what makes me capable? But then I think it just goes back to the desire and the purity of heart, wanting to create and be a leader, and just this initiative to create human-centric platforms, right? And I think a lot of that just goes back to building community and reaching out to the experts, who have been in different fields for 20, 30 years or just 10 years or just more than myself, right? I think there's so much power in that, in learning based on other people's experience and other people's research. And then at the end of the day, just using your discernment, going back to what Aleda said, just saying, okay, this feels right, or no, this doesn't feel right, and just taking what you can and moving on. And so that's what I think about it. That's kind of my experience in building and learning and researching. Just taking what I can and leaning on my own understanding and my spirit to guide what is right.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
just wanted to add to Christian's point that people with PhDs probably are the least embodied people that you'll meet.
Mm-hmm.
And in virtual reality of the metaverse, it's an embodied art.
Mm-hmm.
So we're probably the worst people for it if you think about it. And so don't even think about whether PhDs matter in that sense. And if you look at the United States, we're probably the most disembodied people in the world because of the design of our cities, removing social spaces. We're lots of pharmaceuticals, So if you want to look for embodied people who are going to be the best in an embodied art, you have to look for places in Latin America, places in Africa, places where people walk to the market, people work the land, work in factories. If you have any chance of great productions in virtual reality, here you probably need to find a carpenter and a yoga instructor in the United States. So the most important thing is basically, from our perspective, is being introspective and reading the signs that your body sends you. Because when you lose that communication of what your body is telling you, which you have in the United States, we have like an open drug market. We have 28% of children on psychotropic drugs. It's like 10 times more than the next country. And so that creates a disembodied type of person. And so you want to focus on the embodied aspect of virtual reality to create great productions and be embodied in your life. Be receptive to the signals that your body sends you. And so don't worry about PhDs or anything. We're probably the worst people for what we're supposed to be doing. And we've noticed this in productions that we're doing in Uganda and Africa, and a particular region where we have the tallest people in the world, the Tinka. The women average like 6'5". They're these beautiful people, very ancient people, and so very embodied. They absolutely read all the aspects of virtual reality and the deficiencies of it. Much better than somebody who's sitting in some office in some academic place somewhere. So the more embodied you are, the better you're going to be in virtual reality in the metaverse. Just a little note.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, Alan, right? Because it's like just based in society and the way the education system is, it's like we're taught to think that the most embodied people or the brightest minds are the ones that have been in academia for for decades and decades, right? When really I think that when thinking about the core of humanity and just the rawness of humanity, it lies in societies where there are still ancient practices, right? Like just thinking about you say Uganda, but I was able to go to Egypt last year and just seeing transportation, right? Seeing that they're walking to the market still using camels and horses, and it's a totally different world than the US, right? But that also leads just to a totally different way of thinking and way of developing, mentally, physically, spiritually, and just being aware of that and being aware that there is a different world than what you're taught in the education system, and the best way to get that experience and to learn that experience is to really step outside of what you're used to and experience new environments, which is something that I believe that virtual reality will allow a lot of people to do. Just get a second look at life.
If we're talking about technology and virtual reality, artificial intelligence, we're also talking about autonomy. What's happening with our individual autonomy within technology related to virtual reality, digital twins, for instance, artificial intelligence taking over? How would you place that in relation to wellness and humanity? Because to feel good as a person, we need a certain level of autonomy where we can decide about ourselves, our own body, our own minds, which is, to say the least, I'm not going to say at risk, but still compromised if we don't pay attention going forward. Aileda, I know with neuroscience, it's right in your alley.
I just it takes me back to so right now, if we look at the equation of subconscious mind and people being already in subconscious mind 95% of the time, that's a huge ratio. I don't believe that's how we're designed to be. And so to your point, Christian, like the people of the earth, right? that are actually physically like getting there. And Alan, you said this, like people who work right in the earth and work with the earth. So like from an electromagnetic field standpoint, it only makes sense that we would need to be grounded. Any electrician will tell you that. We have more frequencies flying around today's world that we don't see than probably at a greater rate than any time in our existence that we know of at this point. And so really learning the art of worship and also nature and getting grounded and getting your feet on the earth and the planet. We have rubber soled shoes now, Ellen, that we run around in, right? So like even if we are walking, like everything is rubber, 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 right? Well, that disconnects. Right? It's like it's not gonna ground us. And so there's certain things that can be done that there needs to be awareness around. And I always tell anybody who's designing, coding, engineers who are doing any of this, please get out, right? And find nature and really get grounded throughout this process and the development process, because it's really important. The worship piece is very important. And I come from a perspective of it doesn't matter to me what somebody's worship system is, as long as it elevates you, as long as it takes you to higher ground. From a neuroscience perspective, as long as it increases or puts your brainwave frequencies in a much better, healthier state of being, then I'm all about it. So that I endorse completely. People finding the way to thrive, because we're meant to thrive. We're not here to merely exist. That is not the name of our game. And that's old programming that's stuck in subconscious minds through, again, and if we look at the brain, again, I always say our brain is our computer. Like that is our computer. And we operate in a quantum field, which proves endless possibilities. So Christian, you're going to create some of the most amazing things, obviously, that, has been out there yet. No doubt. No doubt. And you as well, Sarah.
Sarah, how do you see individual autonomy within your work, what you're doing on a daily basis? Do you think it's compromised, or it's...
I think individual autonomy has been compromised in many ways. I think one was kind of when mandates were sent out across the pandemic and people were mandated to have to take vaccines. It's kind of like not having rights over your own physical body anymore. There's a lot of things that have come through that are decisions that are being passed that are taking autonomy away. And the first thing that I would say in regards to anything related to VR headsets, anything that we're going to be strapping on that's neuroscience related, is neuro rights would be the first thing that I would be really concerned with and focused on. And neuro rights need strongly established and boundaries need laid. And the development is already there. And so we need to kind of like hustle up in the game and start cinching some of these things up for the health and well-being of everyone.
Totally. Anyone?
Yeah, I can add a little bit to how our autonomy is affected. And I've been very fortunate. I've lived in 10 countries. I've backpacked like 80 countries, and I like to backpack. But anyway, the idea of autonomy gets thrown around, or individualism in a sense, and philosophical senses in the sense of systems. And everybody has different definitions of freedom. And if you're Chinese, harmony is the primal priority and the collective good. And here in the United States, we like more like cycles of destruction and individualism. So what is the freedom and autonomy within that is different in every country. And so it's a difficult question to answer. I wanted to make a little point about what Alita was mentioning before about being grounded. Something I did during the pandemic is I did this a week without shoes and running around the grass. And it was like a meme being passed around, but it was wonderful. And I just spent the whole week, and but just there's something in the grounding and this barefoot movement that people are doing that does make you feel better, even if you can't maybe read it in EEGs or whatnot, but just wanted to throw in that's another way of another point towards how the body has such an immense impact. And we sort of have this Cartesian division between the body and the mind and the brain, and even in how we approach the subject. And I think we're finding that the body itself is just the mind itself too, right? And so things like new findings and such as the anxiety and depression are linked now to the fauna in your gut. So it has nothing to do sometimes with like, some brain pharmaceuticals that affect the neural cortex, but it's actually just the fauna in itself in your stomach, are finding to be what incites depression. So it's your stomach, it's what you ingest into your body. So if we're looking at the whole person, we're looking, how do we become embodied in a way that's healthy? Go barefoot, careful about what you eat, and that sort of thing can create either, one route, processed foods will lead you to a very disembodied way of living where you can't read the signs from your body, or a more embodied approach that is closer to nature and the earth, and maybe eating a little healthier, obviously. So looking at a whole person perspective, maybe we can address that as well. Thank you.
How would you do that in the virtual reality? For instance, walking barefoot, grounding.
Oh, there's so much in virtual reality that nobody's even doing right now. Just you can't find a production with good spatial engineering, sound engineering, and the greatest sense of presence in VR really comes from this sort of sound engineering.
Mm-hmm.
So right now you have a lot of dull productions in virtual reality or violent, and we're thankful that nobody's figured out sound, because if you're in a very violent landscape and the sound engineering is great, you're going to feel like you're in that war zone. I mean, you're going to feel it like you're going to shiver. Your hair is going to, if you have hair, not like myself, but if you, it's like the hair on your back is going to stand up. And most of them haven't figured it out. So there's a really good productions out there. And so thankfully they haven't figured out sound, but there's so many tools in VR that are just, are not really applied yet. Sound would be one of them. It gives you an immense sense of presence inside a VR landscape.
Brilliant.
If I may add.
Yeah, please.
So in virtual reality, you also have the option for wearables. So it's actually the suits that you could wear completely, and we've used that. So part of that is just using that to create the experience. So that is one angle. But I wanted to go back to the question of autonomy. I think autonomy is a mindset, or it's a mental state, because if I'm at one point in need of something, then I want that to be the thing that I can control. I want it to be the thing that I can achieve. I want it to be the desire that I can have. And that's where I want that autonomy. But then I come to another point where I really do not want that autonomy. I do not want to be the one taking that tough decision. I do not want to be that person who's taking that risk. I do not want to be the person who is liable to that consequence. So if I look at autonomy and I look about what we're doing this for, when do I have autonomy? When do I actually want it? I think that is the question we're finding in the metaverse, because it's a disconnect from the real world in a sense. So I'm escaping reality to a degree. So am I really looking for autonomy, or am I looking for disengagement from the entire experience of being there? I just want a virtual control somewhere where people cannot get to see what I'm doing, or it's a place where I can just find my childish needs and no one will criticize me over it. So it's where the technology is being used and how I'm using it, and whether I'm actually getting autonomy through it or I'm getting something else. The last part is basically the governments and the control of an open space, because we know that virtual reality can be disengaged as a personal experience, as a simulation, and it could also be a shared space where everybody is seeing it, and that's where accountability is an interaction between me and another person rather than me and myself. So I would say autonomy is a choice, and it's also something that we can offer if there is a demand. But otherwise, you will find that it takes a lot of effort to just create that immersive experience, to just create that technology. It takes a lot of financing to invest into it. So right now, autonomy is actually disengaging from these gadgets and finding time to spend as we are as people, and then shifting the experiences that we can't achieve as well in real life and turning them into the virtual reality where we can have some control until we figure out some other way. Um, and that's what it is. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you all for your contributions. It's been, yeah, it went so fast. I mean, like, we could keep on going for hours, at least from my side, because I think this is fascinating, all the input from all of you. So I would like to take the occasion to give you all a last 30 seconds, each of you, to say something, to finish and to wrap it up. So please, if somebody still wants to say something, you get a last 30 seconds.
I think we should do this again one day and go a bit longer. I enjoy meeting you all and hearing your perspectives. But one last thing I would say, right, when you think about wellness, and one of the definitions that I like is it's the practice of healthy habits on a daily basis, so that you're not just surviving, you're thriving. So one question that I like to ask myself when it comes to just my own personal well-being is, where in my life am I not taking full responsibility of my health? Physically, mentally, or spiritually. And so that could be a question for the audience to ask as well. And thanks for having me and this opportunity.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Christian.
From a balance perspective, I would say that the term mind, body, spirit gets used a lot in today's world. And I say it's the wrong order. I say the proper order is spirit, then it's mind, then it's body. And then when we're conscious, I equate that to spirit because it's the same thing as free will, making new choices and new decisions. And then we get that on board, and then we can tell our mind what to do. Hypnotherapy proves that. And then the mind controls the physical body. So that's my take.
Thank you so much, Aileda.
I guess I'll go. My thought that I would like to leave everybody with is just to be yourself and accept everybody as they are. And that's something that I really feel is missing in the metaverse, because we're getting templates, we're getting selectors. We're not accepting people as they are. And that's something that I really want to place into the experience, where I'm taking each person individually and I'm putting them in there. A pregnant woman can exist in the metaverse. Her child can be represented in the metaverse. The quality of life of someone who doesn't have the ability to communicate as everybody else does should be in the metaverse. If we see them, if we give them visibility, if that experience is there, someone has a story they want to tell, they need healthcare, they should be reachable. And with a caution that we need to respect their rights, they need to be well informed, and that's where we get informed consent, not only consent. And that is it. Thank you so much.
Very valuable. Thank you so much. Alan.
Oh, thank you. Just grateful to be with you. And I thought that was really, we explored some subjects I hadn't even thought of. And I think it's just like, it's great to explore together than individually. And so it'd be great to meet again at anything conversations. And we have a couple panels that we do at Studio Bahia. We're a nonprofit. We're doing panels at the Met Office in London, in Brussels, symposiums. And so, but yeah, if you have any suggestions and things for community trauma, communities in particular, we work with a bunch of different ones who they build it themselves within the context of their value systems. So that's a kind of something that we're kind of specialist in. So if anybody has any ideas or suggests communities that have been harmed or have a concern and how to design within those communities, we offer technical support. Basically, that's all we do. But we build it out with them. Just send an email to me and anything we can help with. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you all. It was lovely to have you, and that's what GatherVerse is all about, community. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day, evening for the ones in Europe.
Thank you
See
for
ya.
being a great host, Isabel. Thank you.
Thank you. Couldn't do it without you.